We're recording, I believe. So thanks for everybody for joining today. We'll be brief. Like a lot of the things that I try and teach, this is more concepts, things for you to think about as you leave today and as you progress through your career. Branding and positioning are just some things you should be aware of and you really should be thinking about on a daily basis if you're going to be good marketers, and you are good marketers or going to be good marketers. So these are just some concepts to cover. We'll be brief today, but I appreciate you guys taking the time. Can everybody see the slides? Jim Templeton,
yes,
hello. Thanks for the thumbs up. Got it.
We can see them.
Thank you. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and run through these. Starting with brand, well, just some brief concepts for today. So these are, again, just some kind of concepts to be aware of, and we'll, I think I hopefully sprinkled in a few to-dos. Branding and positioning are not things that happen overnight. Really, you spend your whole career working on them. And that's okay, and you should, but the point today is to get started working on those things if you aren't already. There's, as I said before, these are concepts that you really should be thinking about daily. I'm sure I'll mention several times during the presentation today that they should be the sorts of things that are coloring everything you do from a marketing perspective. And if you remember, if you've been with me on other courses, you've heard me say that marketing, broadly defined in your case, is every conversation you ever have about real estate. You're marketing yourself. So being aware of your brand and thinking about positioning all the time is something that I really want you to start embracing. I think I'm the only one here, so when I hear that, I need to let people in. Okay, great, thank you, someone. And as you've also heard me say, if you've been on other classes before, you're agents now, of course. Maybe you've been agents a long time, but you're also marketers, and I want you to think that way. All right, so what is a brand? Brand is that word in branding. It gets thrown around liberally. What does it really mean? Pretty simply, branding is just, and a brand is just that idea or image that people have when they think about you. Sometimes it's very well defined. Sometimes it's easy to glance to understand what the brand is, sometimes less so. But it's what people are thinking about when they think about you. It can be something physical. It can be something emotional. It provides some identity to you and to your services and your business. And you guys are all in a commodity field, right? You're one of many agents out in your markets, and you're competing against all the others all the time. So it's important to stand out. Creates meaning, creates trust in the consumer's mind, all very important. Positioning. This is the term that you hear about less often, and I don't know if any of you were on Breakthrough. We originally did this. I touch on branding and positioning in square one, so if any of you have been through that, you've heard me mention these concepts. Recently, we expanded it a little bit to talk about it during Momentum, and I think Stephanie took that and covered it somewhat in Breakthrough, if some of you have been through Breakthrough. So apologies if you've heard some of this before, but you're hearing it from me for the first time in a longer form. Positioning is often overlooked, and frankly, most people don't know the term. Sometimes it's called brand positioning, but not to confuse things today. Let's just keep it between brand and positioning. Positioning is establishing a preference for you and the brand. The brand is the way people think about you, right? Positioning, your position is how you are unique in the market, and why someone would, you're creating the answer to the question why someone should pick you over the next agent. So that makes sense. The difference between the two, branding is more emotional. How do I feel about you? How do I think about you? Positioning is more rational. Why should I choose you as my agent? They're both important to consider throughout your careers. Any quick questions before I continue? Just on those basic concepts. We're not going to get too much deeper into that today, but does anybody have any initial questions? Okay. So does brand matter? It does and it doesn't, and I'll explain why, but it does, right? Yes and no, but yes, it's important. Why no? Well, because many people have been successful in their careers without being very conscious of brand or establishing a strong brand, but they've been very successful. They still have a brand. A successful agent who's been in real estate for many years and has sold many, many homes, millions and millions of dollars worth, et cetera, has a brand. They may be known as an agent with a lot of experience. Maybe they're an award-winning agent. They're just an agent with a lot of knowledge. All of those things are part of their brand, but they're not doing things like wearing, a red dress to work every day, or driving a certain car, or their advertising being somewhat over the top, or some of those kind of branding techniques that you see from, say, a used car salesman, right? People tend to think about branding that way. They still have a brand, it's just not that type. So standing out from the competition, very important, obviously. Do most agents have a strong brand, as we mentioned a second ago? No, not really. But you do have a brand, and it's important to be conscious of it. I said before, and I'll say it again several times, I'm sure today, the brand you want to create for yourself should color everything you do, every conversation that you have, every move you make, everything you do on social media, everything you do with your online presence, everything. So what kind of things can go into that brand? How can you establish it? Well, again, anything, everything. Logos and colors. Some of you have your own logos, and some of you put some thought into where you sell can affect your brand. What part of Austin or San Antonio or outlying areas do you sell in can affect your brand. Your social media presence, and many aspects of that. How active are you on social media? What's the quality of your posts? Are you interactive with your use of social media? Are you on many different platforms, right? How knowledgeable are you about real estate? Is that, part of the brand? Sure, it also helps you position yourself, but is part of your brand that agent over the next agent that just knows everything that there is to know about the area, say you're geofarming? Yeah, absolutely, it does. How you dress, and on and on and on. Anything and everything affects your brand. Again, going back to the original definition, what is that idea that people have in their minds when they think about you and your services? Now, again, where and how to establish your brand? Well, social media, of course, your online presence, which covers everything from your website to anything that comes up in a search for you, et cetera, et cetera. Community involvement. All of your geofarming efforts and activities affect your brand. Open houses, an open house is an open house, not necessarily. There are agents who put on really unique open houses and do a lot of unique things, and again, that affects their brand. It affects the way people in the community think about them. Advertising, of course, but you don't have to worry too much about that necessarily. But when you do advertise, you want to consider brand. And then, of course, the most obvious, every real estate conversation you ever have, which is all day, every day, I hope, both in person and online, strongly affects your brand. The JBGoodwin brand, let's talk about that a second. Is that something you should be leveraging? Yes, absolutely. At least I think you should, because why wouldn't you? You've got a brand that's been around for 50 years. It's a brand known for being trustworthy, for having very well-trained agents, for having agents that people can count on. Top workplace, which have you heard from me this week about top workplaces? It's part of why we like to maintain that every year, because top workplaces is something that you can and should use and leverage when you're out talking to folks. Why does that matter? If you're in a listing presentation, why do they care if your company is a top workplace? Because it says you're with a professional organization. And if I'm listing my home with someone, getting somebody to help me buy a home, does it matter to me that they're with a professional organization? Sure, would to me anyway. So leveraging the brand when you can, when it's convenient to you, when it helps you. So some considerations about branding. The best brands are memorable, and you can probably conjure at any moment, any number of well-known brands. They get stuck in your head, and that's what you want people to think about you when they're thinking about real estate. When they're trying to pick an agent, you want them to have you come to mind first. Making a promise in the consumer's mind. Well, what kind of promise is that? It's a promise of whatever it is you've established with your brand. If it's a level of service that they expect from you, that they know of you, that's a promise. If it's your level of knowledge, that's a promise. You've established, in branding, you've established a promise in the consumer's mind. Think strategically when you're thinking about brand. Should everybody's brand be based on all the same kind of aspects? No. Your brand might be based on where you sell, for example. Your brand might be based on, I don't know, the kinds of homes you want to sell. It could be based on any number of things, but the point here is to, when establishing your brand or reestablishing your brand, to think strategically. Again, for the 10th time, always have it aware, always have it in mind, always be aware of branding. Being consistent is key. You can, as we talked about, you can affect your brand through everything from conversation to your social media posts, but you want to be thinking about it and being consistent with how you put it out there all the time. Creating a positive user expectation, attracting loyal clients. That's always the goal of your branding. Put you guys back on camera a second. Let me stop a second because I'm moving pretty quickly before I jump into positioning briefly. Does anybody have anything? Is anybody, I mean, we can open it up. This is kind of loosey-goosey today. Does anybody want to talk about anything, any experiences anybody's had on the branding side, or questions they have? And we can talk about that at the end as well. But okay.
Tony,
yeah.
I'll emphasize something you said.
Yeah.
Which is that your brand is everything you do, everything you say, and everything you don't do, and everything you don't say. So something to consider as well when you're talking to people, or like you said, how you dress, what you say, what you don't say, and all that.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. Everything that they're going to be thinking about when they think about you is affecting your brand. All right, let's talk about positioning a second. Now, does positioning matter? Yes and yes. Why not the no? Why two yes? Because again, positioning is establishing that preference for you. It allows you to compete against everybody else you're competing against. It allows you to differentiate yourself. It encourages that brand loyalty, right? Powerful is probably the most powerful tool you have. You need to differentiate yourself in the market, and how you're positioning yourself, how you're positioning your brand is key. This is the same list that we looked at before. How do you position yourself and your services? Through social media, through your online presence, et cetera, community involvement, geofarming, open houses. Every conversation you ever have is an opportunity for you to establish yourself as unique. You're unique in various kinds of ways. It might be experience, it might be knowledge, it might be you just do interesting marketing, who knows? You've differentiated yourself and you have opportunities constantly to put that out in front of the market. Positioning based on what I just said should also help you, direct all your marketing efforts. I mean, I would challenge you to ask yourself before you make any marketing move, down to the social media posts. How is that affecting your brand? How is it affecting your positioning? How are you positioning yourself, making yourself unique? Analysis paralysis, right? That term for clients, potential clients who just aren't sure and they're going to do their research. They're not sure who they're going to choose and they're doing their research and they're just paralyzed because they can't make a decision. Well, that agent that positioned themselves well is going to tend to be the one to get chosen, we hope. So it helps with that. Determining how you're different isn't always easy. So if you're asking yourself, listening to this today, or after the call, after the class, how am I different? Give yourself a break and don't worry if you don't come up with the answer right away, because it's not necessarily something that's easy to determine. But it's also an opportunity to probably give it some consideration and maybe make a list of the ways you are. Have fun and kick people's butts is that last bullet. I forgot that one was there, but I just love the competition. I love our agents to be able to go out and, with these concepts in mind and just rise above. So video, we have we have several agents on today who do a good amount of video, and I threw this in there because video is just, I think you all know, I think everybody, most everybody's kind of deathly afraid of it, but everybody knows that video is a great way to stand out against the competition. And so I really encourage you to use it as often as you can. You can produce agent profiles of yourself, which obviously is going to help with both your branding and positioning. You can put out videos on buying and selling tips. You can put out videos that are your clients doing testimonials for you. You can do market updates, news, reviews of local businesses. You can introduce neighborhoods. You can do videos from open houses, both Facebook Live and otherwise. The options are endless with use of video, and as much as you think the other agent is probably doing it, the agent down the street, they're probably not. So for that reason, it's an excellent opportunity for you to stand out against the competition. Questions about positioning? Anybody? Is anybody aware of that term before today? Have you heard this through any of our other classes? Is it something you think about? Anybody? Okay, great. All right, let's move on. Gilligan's, they are here and live today, so maybe I'm not going to put them on the spot and make them walk through their own slides. I'll do it for them, but I actually have some questions while we do it, so get ready to unmute Kevin and Jennifer. So let's talk about the Gilligans, who are Lake Travis agents. They're on today. Kevin and Jennifer are wonderful people. They do a lot on social media, both with still images and video and otherwise. And so when I did this class the first time during the Momentum, I put this together just as a brief case study to go through what they do and how it relates to both branding and positioning. So they are both branding and positioning. In fact, before I even go through this, guys, unmute for a second. And is positioning a term that you were aware of, or did you otherwise, when you're strategizing on the things that you do, were you thinking to yourself that these things are going to be how we stand apart as unique?
Sure. So I don't think the actual word positioning was in our minds, but the concept was in terms of how can we have what we think our brand is, and that has developed over time, and the things have stuck. But the way we present ourselves and where that is a very what's the word, like conscious decision.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Excellent. I've been wondering that for weeks, and I couldn't wait to ask you.
Now you know.
All right, so branding and positioning and everything they're doing, high quality work. They're consistent. They're putting out things consistently. They come across as professional, but they also have fun with it, right? So let's talk about some of this. So let's talk about the brand for a second. How embarrassing, you guys, you're everywhere. So the Gilligan brand, as far as I'm concerned, and I assume others, is fun and friendly. They are married, in case you're wondering. That's definitely part of the brand. They're young and energetic, definitely part of the brand. Professional, and they even leverage their name. Gilligan is a name. If you're as old as I am, that's a name that you grew up with on television, and they've even used that. They've also leveraged the JBGoodwin brand that we'll see in a second. So, all right, friendly. Let's start there. There you go. Video and stills and whatever else. They're married. They're young. They're energetic. I think that was young and energetic. What's your dog's name, guys?
Her name's Lady.
Lady, prominent member of the team.
Mm-hmm.
Professional, leveraging their name. That's pretty unique, and bravo, because where was that, by the way?
So that was for the Halloween competition that JBGoodwin had. That's in our guest room. Yeah, so we used that thing for our engagement photos, and so we're repurposing it.
Cool. All right, so brand. Let's go back to the beginning. The brand. Fun and friendly, married, young and energetic, professional, leveraging their name. Now, do any of these things tell us that they're good agents? The answer is no, not really. It's part of their brand. They're establishing their brand. They're establishing that way people think about them. So let's get into positioning a second. Online estimates versus reality. What you don't, what does it say? What you don't see online. Does that help their positioning? Absolutely, to make them knowledgeable. Relevant info, spring cleaning checklist. Topical. I guess that was also, that meant I got these backwards, relevant and topical. There they are, leveraging the JBGoodwin brand. We talked about that. Positioning themselves as real estate experts, putting out stats, right? So again, back to the beginning, establishing a brand doesn't tell us that there's any reason to choose them necessarily over the next agent. To an extent it does, if these things appeal to you, but it doesn't necessarily tell us that they're better agents. These things start to, because they're positioning items. Make sense? And there was one more there, moving checklist, and there is Lady, prominent member of the team. That's just a quick case study. Does anybody have any questions? Anybody have any questions for the Gilligans who are on live? Pretty clear the difference between the branding side of things and the positioning side of things. They work together, but they're different, and they have different uses.
Great presentation. Great branding.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's fun. It's happy. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
I have a quick question.
Sure.
So I've been wanting to start a YouTube channel, and I was wondering. I did actually ask you on an email. I don't know if you've seen that, but this is a good class to come to right now since I have that question. So, so do I need to have like JBGoodwin in my title of if I'm going to post a video? On YouTube, do I need to put JBGoodwin broker or something like that? I just want to know what the rules are for that type of thing.
Yeah, well, ideally you do. Ideally, anytime your logo or name appears, I shouldn't say ideally, as rules go, the broker's logo should appear no less than 50% the size of your name, your logo. As long as you're making some attempt, you generally are fine. Nobody's going to come looking for you. If you, for example, on a YouTube channel, have a YouTube channel cover that includes the broker's logo, you're fine. If you are producing the kind of videos where there is a logo at the end, there's a tag at the end of your video, and you can get the broker's logo in there, that's great. But if you're doing a Facebook Live video, for example, that you later download and upload to YouTube, that's not going to have a tag on it. So just, generally speaking, if you just do your best to make sure the broker's logo appears, again, no less than 50% the size of yours and your name in anything you're doing, then you're okay. Does that answer the question?
Well, because I'm not like very tech savvy, so I guess my questions are, like step 1, step 2, what do you do?
Yeah.
So,
well, I'm sure I understand that completely. Tell you what, reach out to me on the side, Tony@JBGoodwin.com, and we'll go through it all. In whatever amount of time you need. Does that work?
Yes.
Tony?
Okay. Yes, sir.
Tony, can you share the slides with us by any chance?
These slides, yeah, absolutely. And I realize that I'm running a little fast today. I didn't mean to. This is a new course, and I probably need to slow it down and add a little bit more, but I hope you guys are getting the gist. Today's class wasn't supposed, as I said at the beginning, wasn't meant to be a to-do or a how-to, but just a set of concepts to think about. And it's really just the two concepts. So yes, I'm happy to share the slides with you.
Thank you.
Sure thing. And Kevin and Jennifer, thank you for being on today, and thank you for speaking up, and thank you for doing everything you're doing. You made it easy to use you as a case study.
Absolutely. Thank you. It's an honor. Thank you. Very seriously.
So just a few quick tips and takeaways. Think about the things we discussed today. I would say make a list of the ways that you think you would like to be branded. And again, as we said before, then that list will help you determine how you move forward. Same thing on positioning, make that list. How are you unique in the market? If you have trouble coming up with a way, because really there are lots and lots of real estate agents, and from agent to agent, is there necessarily something dramatically different from one to the next? In general, probably not. So again, as I said before, don't worry if you don't come up with anything right away, but it will probably help you start to work toward that. How can you differentiate yourself? Are you the agent who knows the name of the vice principal at the middle school in the area that you geo farm, and the other agent doesn't? Yeah, you've just differentiated yourself. Do you do things a little bit differently at an open house, or are you doing community events? Whatever it is, to start to make that list of ways that you can stand out from the other agents that you're competing against. Utilize the JBGoodwin tools, starting with me, starting with Moxie, starting with anything else that we offer. We offer a lot of things in Design Center, and anything that you can use to help establish your brand and help position yourself, please do. And reach out to me, as I tell you guys every time I'm on. It's Tony, Tony, at jbgoodwin.com, and my number's in there. And you can call me or email me anytime if you want some help one-on-one. I'm always here. It's why we're all here to support you guys, help you guys sell. So utilize that. There is a maximizing your social media NLT on the hub that I did not so long ago. That might inform some of you and what some of you do moving forward, some ways to help you establish your brand and position yourself. So you might want to watch that class if you weren't on it prior. I think a couple of you were on that class. I think that's actually it. Again, brief today. I'm happy to stay on. Does anybody want to discuss anything? Has anybody felt challenged with establishing their brand? Is anybody confused or nervous about starting? Any questions about how you think you can be unique in the market? Anything from anybody? Alan, you got anything?
Tony?
Yes.
Hi, it's Carol here. So I'm just taking an active part in the Band Booster program at my daughter's high school. And it's a great opportunity. It's almost like 200 plus families that will be hearing from me every month. Mm-hmm. The thing is, I don't want to, people know that I'm going to be using it to leverage real estate. Sure. So what is a subtle way of doing it? I mean, I'll be using my personal email, not my JBGoodwin one, because that's too much. What do you suggest I do to let them know I'm a realtor?
Well, what are the opportunities and what are they offering you? So did you is it a sponsorship or did you pay?
Yes, I'm going to be doing fundraising. So it's basically reaching out to companies as well as families. So, I'm basically doing the booster fundraising this year.
Okay. And you have
but I want to be careful that I don't come across as using it as a vehicle to, sell real estate. I don't know.
Yeah, and that's tricky. That's actually something we're going to be covering as part of our charitable efforts here soon, and putting on individual charitable events. This isn't quite a charitable event, but there's that balance between raising money and selling yourself at the same time. So actually, Carol, if you don't mind, what we ought to do, I'm happy to talk to you about it. And it's all educational for me as well. Why don't you reach out to me on the side
Okay.
We'll set up a call and we can talk through the whole thing.
Okay, that would be great. That'd be awesome.
Okay, sure. Yeah, anytime. Yeah,
Okay,
just reach out.
Thank you.
Anybody else on establishing their brand? Sometimes folks have questions about, developing their own logos or what have you.
How you doing today, Tony? Thomas
Hey,
here.
Thomas. Hey, Thomas. Good. How are you?
Quick question. So,
Yeah.
besides posting, like a closing or an open house, one thing I kind of get stumped on sometimes are just different video ideas besides just posting slides. Like, what are some good video ideas that we can use on to help with our social media presence?
Well, as I talked about on another slide, and actually Kevin and Jennifer might even chime in on this, really the possibilities in real estate for video are endless, or at least they're pretty darn long. You can do everything from just doing a profile on yourself to highlighting local businesses, highlights different ways to call out a neighborhood, introduce a neighborhood. You can do buying and selling tips. And each of these things I'm mentioning, of course, there's a long list of things to do within each of those. It's endless. Does that answer, those things start to answer your question?
Yes.
And back to what we talked about today, every single time you're on camera, you are establishing your brand and you are potentially positioning yourself. And that's a good example of why we talked about this today, because you might do a video from an open house and talk about how you're at the open house and these are the features of the house and blah, 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 and that's fine. But if you go into those things thinking about how it's going to affect your brand, how you can position yourself, it will start to color and inform what you say in that video. Makes sense? It gives you an opportunity to not just talk about the details of the open house, but to talk about the neighborhood and the average price per square foot lately in the neighborhood, and on and on and on. Anything that'll make you sound knowledgeable. So on the positioning side, anything that'll make you sound friendly. So on the branding side, somebody I want to call that guy because I like him and he knows what he's talking about. So you can do video all day, and by all means, I recommend that you do. There is no better way to stand out from the competition. The other guys, quote unquote, are not doing it, not like you think they are. So I encourage all JBGoodwin agents to be the kings and queens of video in their geographic area, because you will reap the benefits.
And Tony, I just wanted to make a suggestion.
Sure.
So for what we found for video is, we put it on our Instagram and Facebook and all that, but a big interactive feature is the Instagram stories, and that's where we find the most engagement and because you can put the polls or the question stickers and things like that. And that gets conversations rolling. So that's something that we've really enjoy doing. And also a fun way, like what we did in the beginning when we were first starting real estate, is we asked our closest friends and family. We asked them a couple of questions like, what adjectives do you think about when you think of us as a couple, since we are a team, or and also when you see us, what do you immediately think about? And that really helped us really hone in on what we are kind of pushing out to social media, that content of our dog and coffee, and all that stuff. So that's an exercise.
That's a great, thanks, Jennifer and Kevin. That's a great point. And when, if we were to do a class, say on reestablishing your brand, so you've been in the industry a long time, and doing what Jennifer just said is probably number one, is just kind of stepping back and assessing, what is my brand? How do people think about me? And how do I want to be thought about? The way people think about you is maybe not necessarily the way you want to be thought about, right? So thinking about those things is very important. That's a great point to make. Thomas Coleman, did we answer your question or start to?
Oh, all that was great, especially what Kevin and Jennifer said too. So thank you so much.
Reach out. As I said before, if you have questions about video, you want people to look at things, you want to get some pointers, whatever, please reach out. Who else? Anything? Jason, Samuel, Dave, anybody got anything question-wise?
Kevin, Jennifer, I'm just curious, how long have y'all been with JBGoodwin, or just how long have y'all been realtors?
Since October of last year.
Yeah, October 2020.
Wow.
Wow.
Yeah, and wow is right.
Very nice.
That's a good question. And you can see how quickly you can establish yourself if you approach it strategically and with some purpose. You know, it's human nature for us to, especially going into real estate, and we're all nervous and you don't quite know, you've trained and you've gotten your license, but you still don't quite know what you're doing, and you kind of tippy-toe into it, and that's what most any of us would do. Kevin and Jennifer got strategic about it and, you know, hit the gates running with their marketing and their branding, et cetera. And it works. And they're on social all the time, and they are starting to pick up leads, and, you know, so I'm glad they're on today, and I appreciate them being on. I appreciate them speaking up there. You know, the way they've done it tends to be the exception, but it doesn't have to be, right? Anybody on here can be doing a lot of the same things. It's just a matter of, and again, that's why today's class, thinking about these concepts, branding, and how do I want to brand? How should I position myself, are key. And again, as we said at the beginning, thinking about it every day and letting it color and affect every decision you make. Even a one-on-one conversation with somebody at, I don't know, Home Depot about the fact that all of a sudden you're in a conversation and you're telling them that you're an agent, that affects your brand and can affect your brand. So
one more quick question for, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Okay, one more quick question for Kevin and Jennifer there. Out of all of y'all's marketing, online stuff, logos, the videos, everything as far as that's concerned, and you already mentioned the Instagram stories, where would y'all say y'all get the, I guess, highest rate of lead generation off of those?
Off of those, it would be the stories, the
Instagram stories.
And one thing that we do, which it's kind of silly and has nothing to do with real estate, but I think that's what people like, is every Friday, since actually before we were realtors, I was kind of sprinkling it in there. We do this thing called Front Porch Friday, and everyone are like, I post like, and I tag different like decorators, and I make people, you know, it's basically a this or that poll. And we've been so consistent with that kind of polling, and people just find it fun. And people, you'd be surprised how many people message us of like giving us their opinion of like, oh my gosh, that front porch is blah, you know, and you're like, okay, they started the conversation, and then you start talking to them. And there was one time, we've done it, you know, so consistently that there have been a couple times where we had meetings in the morning. I always post it in the morning, and people would reach out to us, and they're like, hey, so did you just stop Front Porch Friday? And I'm like, no, sorry, like give me 1 more hour. So people expect it from us. So yeah, anyway, stories is our big thing.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jennifer's made it. Yeah, thanks for those questions, and thanks, Jennifer. Jennifer's made a good point about, and again, if you go watch that social media class I was talking about and others, one of the big concepts is creating interactive posts, not just posting, not just doing, but using them to generate conversations. One thing we haven't talked about today, and maybe Jennifer just made me think about it, was that, of course, doing a lot of these things, doing as much as they do, requires what? Well, some work, right? Some hustle. It doesn't just magically happen. So that's the other key here, is just not just being strategic, not just wanting to do it, but, you know, finding the time to do it. And of course, not everybody has to do everything the Gilligans do, but they're just a good example of what you can do, and how if you're doing things with a wide breadth, you're covering both your branding and your positioning. I didn't want to, I didn't use them as a case study because I thought everybody should be doing exactly what they're doing. That's not realistic, but I just wanted kind of to use them as a good example of both branding and positioning.
One last question. I promise
Yeah.
it's the last one.
No, that's great. Keep them coming.
So whenever y'all are doing your videos and stuff like that, obviously, at times y'all will have to edit them. Do y'all use a specific editing program? Do y'all do it all on your phone? How do y'all manage that side of it?
Yeah, so
Instagram has a good. Sorry.
So no, I'm sorry. This makes me really excited. So depending on so for the videos that we post in our actual feed, there's some, like we did like a home seller boot camp series, and we used a teleprompter, all that stuff, but it was all on our phones. But for that, I used an app called Splice. And that is, I think it's a couple dollars, maybe a week or a month, but it was worth it.
Yeah, it's a couple bucks a week.
iMovie wasn't cutting it for us. But for everything else, like for Instagram stories, like a lot of times, you know, we're doing behind the scenes and we're not posting it immediately, you know, we're saving it and then maybe cutting it down. But for the most part, like Kevin said, just straight from our phone and through Instagram itself.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Absolutely.
And guys, tell everybody where, in case they want to follow your Instagram.
Sure.
Yeah, I already did that just a minute ago.
Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. I'll put it in the chat. It's Gilligan Group ATX.
Great. Thanks, guys. Anything else anybody has? Anybody want to talk about anything about either of these concepts? I hope that you know, this is giving you some things to think about. And again, reach out anytime if I can help, and we'll always available. So I guess if nobody has, yeah, please.
I know they mentioned Splice. I know one of the apps that I use to kind of like edit videos that's free. It's called InShot. I use that on the phone, so that's another option as well too.
Okay, great.
Do you know
how's it spelled?
Just INSHOT.
Okay, got it. Okay, thanks for that.
If you have an iPhone or an iPad, you can get iMovie for free with your device, and that is really easy to use. It's definitely like set up for consumer-based use. So
yeah, thanks for that, Ella. Yeah, iMovie is good. It's easy to use. CuteCut, an unfortunate name, but CuteCut, CUTE, is also easy to use on the phones, and they use a lot at the San Antonio division office, which is why I'm aware of it. So there are others. Carol, you're asking about when to get in touch. Anytime, just drop me an email and we'll figure it out.
Great, thanks.
Sure thing.
Tony, Kevin, Jennifer, thank you all so much. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely, yeah. Again, for the millionth time, sorry, reach out anytime, and you think of anything after the class you want to discuss or talk about, just let me know. And I appreciate you guys all being on today, and have a great rest of your week, and I'm gonna roll on. Have a good one.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Tony.
Thank you so much.
Thanks again. Y'all have a good one. Take care.
Bye.